In 1928, archaeologist Julio C. Tello uncovered more than 300 elongated skulls buried in Peru's coastal desert. Those remains were radiocarbon dated to nearly 3,000 years ago, predating the Inca by a millennium. Mainstream science calls it head binding, but DNA recovered from these skulls revealed lineages that should not exist in ancient South America and mutations that left experts unnerved. What could the truth behind Peru's Paracas skulls really mean for the story of our own origins? Wind scours the Paracas Peninsula, a raw finger of land jutting into the Pacific, where the desert meets the sea in southern Peru. Beneath the sand, ancient tomb galleries stretch in silence, subterranean chambers carved deep into the earth, hidden for centuries. In 1928, Julio C. Tello, the pioneering Peruvian archaeologist, led a team into this arid landscape. His work would change the understanding of pre-Inca civilizations forever. Tello's team uncovered a burial ground unlike any seen before. Dozens of stone-lined shafts led to family crypts, each packed with tightly wrapped bundles. When the wrappings were carefully unwound, what emerged were not only human remains, but skulls of astonishing shape, elongated, almost otherworldly. Alongside these, the tombs yielded a trove of elite artifacts, vibrant textiles woven in patterns never before catalogued, obsidian blades sharp as volcanic glass, and ornaments of gold and shell. These grave goods spoke of a society with wide-reaching trade and a taste for rare luxuries, their craftsmanship rivaling the finest in the ancient Andes. Tello's meticulous notes describe the challenges of working in the harsh desert, securing funding, negotiating with landowners, and the ever-present threat of looters. Yet the finds were undeniable. The sheer number of elongated skulls, the quality of the textiles, and the artistry of the burial goods suggested a culture both sophisticated and enigmatic. The Paracas necropolis, buried beneath layers of sand and time, stood as evidence of an elite class whose customs and origins would puzzle generations of researchers to come. Radiocarbon analysis placed the Paracas burials at nearly 3 millennia old, between 800 and 1000 BCE. This anchors the remains in a period long before the Nazca lines were etched into the desert, and centuries before the rise of the Inca. The Paracas culture, as archaeologists call it, flourished in isolation on Peru's southern coast, while much of the ancient world was still forming its earliest empires. The dating results, confirmed by multiple laboratories in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, consistently returned ages of 2,800 to 3,000 years. These numbers are not just technical details. They reveal a society whose roots stretch deeper than most South American civilizations known from written history. The Paracas people were weaving intricate textiles and practicing elite burial rites, while the Olmecs ruled in Mesoamerica and the earliest city-states rose in the Mediterranean. This timeline sets the Paracas apart. Their elaborate mortuary tradition, marked by the elongated skulls and rich grave goods, predates the Nazca by several centuries. The region's cultural succession, Paracas followed by Nazca, then later by the Wari and Inca, shows a continuous thread of innovation and adaptation. Yet nothing in the archaeological record from neighboring cultures matches the scale or style of Paracas funerary practice. The radiocarbon dates provide a fixed point in time, but the origins of these people and their striking customs remain a puzzle, inviting questions about migration, contact, and the limits of what we think we know about ancient Peru. Paracas crania, once freed from their funerary wrappings, stunned even seasoned archaeologists with their proportions. The skulls stretched long and high, but it was the sheer scale that set them apart from anything catalogued in the Andes. Reports circulated, some from museum notes, others from alternative researchers, claiming these skulls held up to 25% more cranial volume than an average modern human. Some accounts went further, alleging they weighed as much as 60% more. In a field where a few millimeters or grams can distinguish entire populations, these numbers seemed almost impossible. A standard adult human skull holds about 1,350 cubic centimeters of brain volume. The figures attached to the Paracas elite suggested capacities approaching 1,700 cubic centimeters and weights exceeding 2 kilograms. Such measurements, if accurate, would place these individuals far outside the range of known human variation, even among other ancient cultures that practiced head shaping. The claims did not stop at size. Observers described the bone itself as unusually dense and thick, with some skulls showing a smooth, almost seamless dome. In certain cases, the cranial vault appeared to lack the usual lines where bones fuse in childhood, presenting instead a single broad plate across the top. Anthropologists debated the methodology behind these numbers. Many pointed out that no peer-reviewed study had ever published systematic measurements confirming a 25% increase in volume or a 60% increase in mass. Instead, most scientific surveys found that cranial deformation changes the skull's shape, but not its internal capacity. Yet the rumors persisted, fueled by dramatic photographs and specimen displays in local museums. Claims of heavier, larger skulls became a flashpoint, drawing a line between mainstream science and those convinced the Paracas elite represented something truly unknown. For critics, the absence of published, replicable data left the size anomaly unproven. For believers, the very existence of such skulls demanded a new explanation, one not limited to cloth bindings and cultural tradition. The question of scale, how much larger, how much heavier, remains at the heart of the Paracas mystery. Without definitive measurements, the debate lingers, setting the stage for an even deeper anatomical puzzle, the missing seams that should divide the skull's crown. In Paracas tombs, the skulls of the elite display a feature that continues to spark debate: the apparent absence of the sagittal suture, the seam that normally runs from front to back along the crown of the human skull. In a typical skull, this suture divides the two parietal bones, closing gradually with age. Medical literature describes true absence of this seam as vanishingly rare outside of a congenital condition known as craniosynostosis, which affects only a tiny fraction of modern births, about 2 or 3 cases in every 10,000. When craniosynostosis does occur, it often results in a long, narrow skull, but the condition is always considered a pathology, never a population trait. Yet, among the Paracas skulls, particularly those recovered from high-status burials, museum records and alternative researchers have reported a striking number with a single, broad parietal plate and no visible sagittal seam at all. The scale of these claims is unusual. Accounts suggest that many, perhaps even most, of the elongated skulls from certain collections show this feature. However, there is no published, peer-reviewed survey quantifying how often the suture is truly absent across the hundreds of skulls excavated. The lack of systematic data leaves a gap. Are these isolated anomalies or evidence of something more widespread? Mainstream anthropology maintains that artificial cranial deformation, binding the heads of infants with boards or cloth, can dramatically reshape the skull but does not erase its seams. Even after years of pressure, the sutures typically remain visible, though sometimes altered in appearance. The mechanics of binding are well understood. Deformation changes the external profile, but the internal bone structure, including the seams, generally persists. The assertion that a cultural practice could remove or entirely fuse the sagittal suture on a large scale challenges decades of forensic and osteological research. Without a comprehensive anatomical catalogue, the debate remains unresolved. The question of missing seams sits at the crossroads of biology and cultural tradition, raising the stakes for future research. Only high-resolution CT scans capable of tracing bone growth and suture formation in 3 dimensions can settle whether these skulls represent rare clinical cases, a population-level anomaly, or simply the limits of observation in a field shaped by both science and spectacle. A narrow corridor in the Regional Museum of Acre was lit only by the blue glow of monitors. It was well past midnight when a small group wheeled in the skulls, some wrapped in muslin, others bare, their profiles unmistakable, even in shadow. The team had gained after-hours access with the quiet approval of a sympathetic official, knowing that what they were about to do would not appear in any public catalogue. The goal was to scan the Paracas crania using a hospital-grade CT scanner, capturing every seam, ridge, and void in digital cross-section. The session was tense, with 2 camps standing side by side. Dr. Elsa Tomasto, a bioarchaeologist trained in Andean osteology, reviewed the images as they appeared, scrolling through axial slices and measuring bone thickness at each interval. She pointed to features she recognized: remodeled bone, displaced sutures, patterns consistent with binding. Across the table, Brian Forster studied the same screens, searching for evidence of missing seams, denser bone, or signs that the skulls defied known anatomy. Within 48 hours, both would publish their interpretations, each claiming the scans supported their view. The raw data from the CT, however, never entered the public domain. No peer-reviewed journal published the full scans, and no open-access archive made the three-dimensional models available for forensic review. Instead, the debate unfolded in blogs, conference talks, and social media posts, each side referencing the same night's work but drawing opposite conclusions. Tomasto maintained that every feature fell within the range of human variation, shaped by deliberate binding and natural developmental quirks. Forster insisted the images revealed anomalies: thicker vaults, missing sutures, and cranial architecture he argued could not arise from cultural practices alone. Without access to the underlying data, outside experts could only speculate. Calls for transparency grew louder, with researchers on both sides demanding open datasets and independent replication. The CT session, intended to resolve the controversy, instead deepened the stalemate. The evidence was locked behind museum doors and private drives, leaving the debate suspended between image and interpretation, and raising the stakes for the next phase, testing the very code of the ancient dead. Technicians stepped into the clean room, glass doors sealing behind them. Each movement was tracked, every surface sterilized. Ancient DNA work leaves no margin for error. From the Paracas skulls, samples ranged from tufts of reddish hair to small teeth removed with surgical tools. But the most valuable was bone powder drilled from deep inside the skull, often near the foramen magnum, where centuries had kept it untouched by modern hands. Each fragment was coded and shipped to labs abroad, the scientists blind to its origin. The focus turned to mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA. Unlike nuclear DNA, mtDNA passes only through the maternal line and exists in thousands of copies per cell. Its resilience makes it the genetic material most likely to survive centuries in harsh conditions. For researchers, mtDNA is the thread that can sometimes trace maternal ancestry across generations, and in rare cases, reveal patterns of migration. Early findings did not appear in scientific journals. Instead, they surfaced on alternative websites and in press releases. Brian Forster, a prominent figure among those seeking anomalies, announced that some Paracas skulls showed mtDNA mutations unknown in any human, primate, or animal known so far. He claimed the expected Native American haplogroups A, B, C, and D were missing in several samples. Instead, sequences reportedly matched lineages from Europe, the Middle East, and the Caucasus. An unnamed geneticist said if these mutations were confirmed, we are dealing with a new human-like creature, very distant from Homo sapiens. Inside the lab, the response was measured. The director emphasized that none of these results had undergone peer review. Ancient DNA is easily contaminated by handlers, soil, even the air. Without strict chain of custody and open data, such claims remain unproven. Yet the preliminary reports stirred debate. If the findings were genuine, how could Old World lineages have reached Peru nearly 3,000 years ago? The question now divided the field, between those demanding extraordinary evidence and those drawn to the possibility of a mystery. Long before the Paracas skulls entered DNA labs, their shape fueled stories of lost civilizations and forgotten voyages. For over a century, researchers and storytellers have debated whether the elongated crania point to ancient migrations across oceans or echo the memory of a vanished mother culture. Some see in their contours evidence of a prehistoric world linked by seafaring elites, people who carried not only their technology, but their bloodlines from the Old World to the New, long before Columbus or the Incas. Maps are drawn with dotted lines across the Atlantic, tracing possible routes from the Mediterranean, the Caucasus, or even the Middle East, inspired by genetic hints and the allure of shared motifs in textiles and astronomy. The Atlantis narrative finds fertile ground here. According to this view, survivors of a global cataclysm, whether called Atlantis, Mu, or something else, seeded their wisdom and their genes among scattered societies. Head elongation becomes more than a status symbol. It's imagined as a way to honor ancestors whose skulls were naturally long, marking a lineage apart from the rest. These stories, repeated in books and documentaries, blend myth with the gaps in the archaeological record, inviting speculation where hard evidence runs thin. Yet, even within Andean oral tradition, cranial shaping carries a different meaning. Among Quechua and Aymara speakers, the practice signals noble blood, wisdom, or a special place in the cosmos, not a separate species, but a visible marker of social identity. The appeal of a transoceanic origin persists, but without clear proof, it sits alongside other legends, compelling, but waiting for the kind of evidence that can withstand scientific scrutiny. The question remains, are these skulls a genetic outlier, a cultural echo, or a mirror for our own fascination with the unknown? Inside a climate-controlled vault, a Peruvian Ministry of Culture official unlocks a steel cabinet. Each Paracas skull is tagged, its journey logged in a ledger stretching back decades. The official signature is required for any removal, whether for museum display or scientific study. Local museum director Rosa Gutierrez stands nearby, her arms folded. She recalls the heated meetings with ministry lawyers and community elders, each side weighing the value of research against the need for respect. The legal framework is unyielding. Every test, every sample must be approved, documented, and traceable, no exceptions. Contamination is the unspoken threat in every ancient DNA lab. A single skin cell, a stray hair, can overwrite centuries of genetic history. Researchers wear full-body suits, double gloves, and filtered masks. Samples are handled in sterile hoods, with negative controls run in parallel. Every scientist who enters the clean room submits their own DNA profile to screen for accidental transfer. Even so, the risk never drops to zero. Chain of custody records must account for every fragment, every movement, from the tomb to the sequencer. Any break in documentation, any missing record, casts doubt on the results. The standard for proof is exacting. Extraordinary claims, like a new human lineage or foreign ancestry, require open access to raw DNA sequences, full laboratory protocols, and independent replication by outside teams. Peer-reviewed publication is the baseline. Open data for reanalysis is the expectation. For the Paracas skulls, this means high-resolution CT scans and full genomic datasets, not just summaries or press releases. Gutierrez insists on one more step. The local community must have a seat at the table, their voices part of every decision. Only then, she says, can the world trust the answers that will one day emerge from these ancient bones. Discovery. In 1928, Julio C. Tello uncovered more than 300 elongated skulls on the Paracas Peninsula, each dating back nearly 3,000 years, centuries before the Nazca and Inca civilizations. Scientific reports document skulls with up to 25% greater cranial volume and repeated claims of missing sagittal sutures, features not fully explained by known head-binding practices. Preliminary results. DNA analysis, performed in accredited labs with strict contamination controls, returned preliminary results indicating some mitochondrial haplogroups not typically found in Native American populations. However, these results remain unpublished and unreplicated, and no comprehensive osteological survey has established the true frequency of the reported anomalies. Ethics. In 2017, Peruvian authorities intervened to secure the remains, highlighting the ethical stakes. Today, the Paracas skulls continue to challenge assumptions about ancient migration and cultural identity. Until full peer-reviewed datasets and open CT imaging are made available, both the origins and significance of these skulls remain unresolved. What is clear? The Paracas discovery stands as one of archaeology's most enduring enigmas, demanding both rigor and respect.